Marketing. I'm Gage.
I'm Mandy.
And this is the Coach Vincent Show.
I would like to thank Bellini's Texas Grill for sponsoring the Coach Vincent Show.
I'd like to introduce Coach Vincent. So, Coach, what did you expect to see coming from the spring game? Kind of any thoughts or what you expected to see from the players in the game today?
Well, one of the biggest things we tell our players is spring game's a night for fun. It was a great atmosphere. We had one of the best crowds we've ever had in a spring game. I thought our booster club and the fanfare surrounding the game was exciting. There was a lot of little kids running around, seeing what Ranger football was all about, and our community came out and really supported. So the biggest thing that I enjoyed about the spring game was a fun atmosphere. From a player's perspective, our players, they're competitive and they want to win the game. We use the 4 scrimmages prior to the game to really evaluate our players, and we do the drafts and we kind of pick teams and let them have a really fun night. It was a good close game and real competitive, so I think it was a good night for everybody.
Coach, you mentioned before that there was a competition for the starting quarterback position. Do you think tonight helped resolve any of that?
Well, I think the whole body of work is how we evaluate players. From the very first scrimmage to the very end, to the very last scrimmage, we're evaluating not only our quarterbacks, but every position. Every week our players know that there's a race at every position, and that competition is what's going to make us better. So I would say just the body of work throughout the entire spring, and then also the type of summer that our quarterbacks and our team is going to have, and also leading up to our non-district schedule. We just want to make sure we have all the right people in the right places, making the right plays by the time we get into that district race.
So, Coach, the offensive line is all but one returning guys. How do you think that experience is going to help them in the long run?
Well, you know, one of the things on offense that, you know, last year we went through kind of an injury situation, and that can be a real negative when you're going through it. But one of the positive things is we had a lot of guys on offense get playing time. Multiple offensive linemen had to play last year because of the 4 injuries we had with that group, and we're hoping that if those guys have a great summer with the strength and conditioning part, that the experience that they had last year in game situations are going to help us next year.
Okay, mentioning the returners, how many do we have?
Well, offensively, we counted at one time, there's 9 to 10 guys that were at least in a game experience on offense last year. Not the entire year, but from time to time. Defensively, we have 5 or 6 guys that were on the field at some point last year. So you're looking at 15 to 16 guys that have had varsity experience, like I said, because of being forced into it last year, which should help us going into this year's season.
And coming from the spring scrimmages and this scrimmage, how do you think it's going to turn out in the next upcoming season?
Well, I'll tell you, we're really pleased with how far we are along with our offense. It was amazing to go into our first scrimmage. You know, you're looking at the very first scrimmage, you're thinking you're going to be real basic on offense, real basic on defense, and we had most of, if not all of our defense and offense installed by the first week. So then those 3 scrimmages following, we were able just to work on the finer details, add very little, and get good at what we do. And so, you know, I feel like we're a lot further along. Our football IQ is extremely high right now, so I feel really good about that. It'll be interesting to see how it carries over after the summer.
And chemistry is a very important thing about a football team, or any team for that matter. How do you think the team's chemistry is this year?
Well, I think over the anytime you go into a spring ball or a fall camp, or you start spending that much time together, you start developing bonds with players, and I think we've got a really good close group of guys. I think the summer, when you have to come up and work out in the summer, and a lot of it's voluntary, and you know, the 7-on-7, those things build teammates too, and you have to do those things in the summer together. A lot of the team building comes 2 weeks prior to 2-a-days too, when it's no longer coach-led workouts, but it's player-led workouts. And you kind of see a lot of some team building through that also.
Yes, sir. So, Coach, regarding defensive players that are returning, the majority of the defense is non-returning players, right?
Well, we have several defensive linemen. You know, we have a couple defensive linemen that got some playing experience last year. We bring back a couple linebackers that had some experience. We're really looking forward to seeing how those players play. Also in our secondary, we had some younger players that played. Because of some injuries this spring, those guys haven't been able to perform as much, but we've got some guys in our secondary that played a little bit last year. One of the biggest things for us coming in the spring was filling those other spots and looking at those positions. And early on, you could tell that we were a little bit behind defensively, but later we started catching up, and some of those inexperienced guys started getting a lot more experience. So we were really pleased with the way those guys finished.
Special teams they win ball games as a whole. How do you think our special teams are going to hold up next year too?
Well, this last week we were able to get some really good tape on our special teams. We were able to go through all of them. They're all installed, and we were able to evaluate them. So one of the big things going into the fall is they're installed, and now all we have to do is we have to rep them and make sure that we're good at them. We feel like that we've got really good skilled players. We feel like we've got what I call special teams type guys. We have a bunch of linebacker, outside linebacker type guys on our team, and those usually make for really good special forces players. So we think that's going to give us an advantage going into the season next year.
Yeah. Rangers as a whole, we have a very complex offense. Do you think that's also working in our favor, or do you think players will sometimes have some trouble with that as a whole?
Well, I ask our players all the time because I want us to play fast. And in order to play fast, you've got to make sure that you know what you're doing and you're not having to think about it. And I ask all the time, and our players feel pretty good about it. And we're complex in the different formations we run, but we basically only run about 4 or 5 running concepts, and we try to make sure that we keep things simple for our offensive line. The receivers and quarterbacks and running backs, they've got to know different formations. But when you really get down to it, we're going to run a sprint out protection. We're going to run a 5-step protection. We're going to run a 3-step protection. And then we're going to run 5 or 6 running plays. And it's going to be the same things for our offensive linemen because that's where it really counts. We want our offensive linemen to be able to be aggressive, to be able to play fast. So there's some simplicity in what we do, but the way we get about it and the different looks we give people is complex.
A lot of teams in our district, they run pace offenses, snapping the ball as soon as the whistle's blown. How are the Rangers taking that into account and working on that?
Well, one of the things that we implemented this spring is we implemented a drill that we got from one of the colleges in another high school. And it's a drill where we make our defensive players after the snap run to a cone or to a certain point and then come back, and we have another offense ready to go. And what that's simulating is having to be ready when you're tired in a fast-paced offense. And I felt like the feedback I got from coaches and players is that's gonna help them. We don't ever want to be caught off guard by a fast-paced offense. And so I think that was one of the things we implemented this spring that's really going to help.
What do you think the toughest games are going to be next year? I know every game is different, but which games do you think will be the definite most difficult?
Well, I think every one of our district games will be tough because we're in one of the best districts in the state. We could end up with a couple state champions from our district, that type of deal. The game that we're focusing on now is Bastrop. I told the players tonight, as soon as the game's over, we're all on Bastrop from here until that time. So that's the most important one for us right now, is making sure we get ready for that.
Well, I'd like to thank Bellini's for allowing us to do the Coach Vincent show in their restaurant, and we will see you guys next game day.
Really excited about our spring game and want to thank our booster club and Christy Drossi for putting together such a great spring game. She had a great team, and then looking forward to Smiles for Sammy on Saturday, the 5K that we're putting on, and hoping to raise some great money for a great cause. Want to thank the team that's been putting that together. Also to Bellini's for sponsoring our spring game and hosting our coaches show. They're doing an incredible job of supporting our football program, and also looking forward to our Memorial Day golf tournament over at Avery Ranch. We have a great group of golfers coming out, and wanted to thank Jason Reynolds and his crew for all the work that they've done, and all of our sponsors that are sponsoring our golf tournament this year. So exciting weekend for Ranger football, and really looking forward to the 2 events that we have coming up.